Hola, buenos días. Continuando con el ciclo de charlas que hacemos en la Escuela de Informática en colaboración con empresas del sector, hoy tenemos el placer de recibir una empresa multinacional alemana que se llama MaibornWolff. Esta empresa es muy interesante para nuestro centro ya que ha decidido abrir una sede en Valencia. La va a abrir próximamente y dentro de sus planes, como nos van a comentar, es contratar ya sea alumnos en práctica o ingenieros ya un poco más senior. Esta empresa tiene cerca de 100 empleados, creo, y se dedica a temas de desarrollo de software para aplicaciones móviles o bien dispositivos móviles, perdón. En el caso de hoy nos van a comentar cómo desarrollar de manera segura aplicaciones para Android, con lo cual es una charla muy interesante. La empresa se ha decidido por venir a Valencia gracias a la labor de una de sus ingenieras, que es Paula Montesa, que es la persona que nos contactó antes de verano. Y Paula nos va a comentar un poco cómo son las condiciones de trabajar en la empresa y a ver si os puede convencer a que os unáis a ellos próximamente. Como siempre, agradecer a todas las empresas que se dignan a ceder un poco su tiempo a compartir su experiencia con nosotros. Espero que la charla os guste. Es una charla que creo que puede ser muy interesante y agradecer de nuevo a la empresa MaibornWolff su tiempo y su dedicación por esta charla. Gracias.
Hola, César. Hola a todos. Yo soy Paula. Y muchas gracias, primero de todo, por darnos la oportunidad de poder pasarnos por aquí. Y ahora, si os parece bien, voy a continuar en inglés para que mis compañeros también se puedan enterar de lo que hablamos a partir de ahora. And well, as Cesar was telling you, I'm super excited about this opportunity my company has given me to open one of our offices in Valencia. And now my mission is to find the greatest talent in town. So that's why I'm here. And as Cesar told you, I'm willing to convince you so that you can join us. I'm telling about we. So who's with me today? Steve, can you please share your screen? Yeah, it's 4 of us, 3 colleagues of mine and myself. Nils, he's the one that's going to hold the technical part. As Cesar told us, it's going to be about Android reengineering. Both he and Steve belong to the mobile and X-Reality departments. They are both Android experts, and are going to tell us a bit about that. Steve is also joining this crazy adventure and moving to Valencia with me. And the same is doing Christian. Christian is a colleague of my own department, and we both are in the digital design and engineering department, and he is also joining me and helping me grow the whole thing. Yeah, so please, let's go to the next slide. As I was telling you, the plan for today is that we tell you who we are, what we do, and which kind of projects we work on, and then we jump into this technical talk. About us, one of the things that make us most proud of the company is that for 11 years in a row, we won the prize for the great place to work. And that means we got the award as being the best IT employer in Germany. So pretty great. Now we're a bit over 100 employees, as Cesar said. We are actually a bit over 550 employees at the moment, and that's spread over 28 nationalities. And well, believe it or not, we have a quota of 31 female engineers in our offices. You know how hard it is. We're working on it. I hope it's going to get better the moment we get to Valencia. And the average age is around 32-year-old, which is not bad if you take into account that the company is itself over 30 years old. And now I'll pass it to Chris, who will tell you about what we do exactly.
So thank you very much, Paula. For us, it's always easy to describe what we do in 3 main topics that we do. We do coding, we do testing, and we do consulting. And which kind of apps or which kind of software we do is, for example, we do mobile, artificial intelligence also, augmented reality, virtual reality, web, DevOps, blockchain, cybersecurity. Like we have a really broad spectrum on every kind of customers. Like normally, you know, from companies in Germany that they center in automobile industry. In our case, we focus or we try to go into other kind of projects, and we have a really broad spectrum of fun projects. And of course, we do consulting, and in consulting, we have Agile, early phases, UX and UI, of course, digital strategy, enterprise architectures management and audits, and for testing backend and frontend. And the fun thing in our company is also that, for example, I did for a long time, in my case, consulting, and now I just decided that I want to go into coding. And I just talk to my boss and say, hey, I want to start coding, frontend, and so on. And they give us always this opportunity to be flexible and to develop in the direction we want. And this is a really great thing that we have in our company. In the next slide, you can see, for example, why it's for us maybe to work a little bit different. We say we have 40 hours a week, and we can really assure that we don't have overtime culture. So we will really have these 40 hours a week, and we try not to build overtime and so on. We try to be straight with that. We also have free time to do research and development. For example, on Fridays, we have some time to work in our own internal projects. For most of the employees, they should work at least 85% of their time in customer projects, and the other time they can use it for internal things. And things like working from home or flexible working time, that you can work whenever you want, is a normal thing since a long time, and we really live it. For example, now that we are going to Valencia and working for German projects, we are working there from wherever they want without any problem. And also we manage our own time. And what is also really fun is that we have this one extra salary, and we can use it to learn whatever we want. We have also extra benefits like sabbaticals. For example, last year was Paula in Latin America. She took a sabbatical, I think, of 2 or 3 months. And we have, for the case of Valencia, we will have the health and life insurance, lunch subsidy, and so on. So this great place to work, we give extra effort that we also live it. It's not just some title we get every year. No, we really put effort and living that into the company, and the environment is really good. And that's why we confirm it always with all the prizes we win about this. And we are very lucky and very happy to bring all this into Spain and into Valencia. And in the next slide, you will see, for example, our offices. Our company gives also a lot of effort to have really nice offices and so that the employees feel really great. For example, Frankfurt here, you can see how it looks like. Then you can see in Augsburg how it looks like. As also, we invest a lot in the design of the offices so it feels comfortable. This is in Munich. This is an old electrical plant that we bought, and you can see the whole city from the plant, and it's really nice. Also in Hamburg, directly in front of the harbor, the office is really special. In Darmstadt, this is also a new office we opened a couple of months ago, where you can play billiard and see also the whole city. We have also in Tunis an office with an amazing view, and in Berlin, you can see the Berlin Tower here behind, in front of the terrace we have in the office, where you can sit and take some sun. And coming soon, close to the harbor, we are going to open a new office in Valencia that we are preparing also with an amazing space for you. Now, Steve can tell you a little bit about our customers and small projects that we do.
So, hi everyone. I'm Steve, and as Paula already introduced me, I am a mobile developer here at MaibornWolff. I'm now here, part of this company for around 5 years, and I would like to present some of the projects that I have some insight about, and then that actually show pretty good what we actually do with the happy developers that we have here in our company. So we do work for a lot of customers like BMW, Deutsche Bahn, Mercedes, Miele. So we have a broad spectrum of customers that are located here in Germany and all over the world. but I would like to focus on some projects from where I have more interest about. And at first, I would like to present to you the Mybeamw app, which is a former Google success story. Why is it a Google success story? Because it is probably the biggest app that is written completely in Flutter. I'd like to show the video, but apparently it is not starting. Let's see if it now works. Right here, to give a little bit introduction about it. I close the, I'm going to lower the audio a little bit. So the BMW app, as you can maybe see here, has a lot of features like for example, keyless access to your BMW, or one of the newest features is controlling it via Alexa. And when I talk about biggest app, it's developed by 31 teams all over the world, teams in Brazil, teams in China. And one of those teams is located at us. Currently, there are, I think, 17 people from us that work on all those amazing features. Next one is a less commercial app. No, the Basket Hero game, which is basically a VR game we built for the Brose Basket. So if any of you are well known with EuroLeague basketball, the Brose Baskets are basically one of the biggest teams that we have here in Germany. And in this case, not the customer, so Bamberg, said what they want to have. They asked us what we can do, and we decided, hey, we would like to develop a VR game. And in this case, it's basically a basketball game which is located in space. So over the time where you do this game, the gravity changes and it gives a whole new aspect about it, which is quite a fun feature. Not all of our apps are commercial apps. As I said, we actually also do R&D projects. And this one is quite interesting because the IoT bike basically measures the quality of bicycle paths here in Munich. So this is an Android app which is located on the bike, and it uses the gyroscope and the accelerator sensors to measure the quality of those bicycle paths. So you can see on a dashboard that what the data has shown us, and when it is red, it's basically says that this is not a really good path, obviously. And this is such a nice idea that the city of Munich itself said, hey, we like this idea and we want to support you. And this also led to that this project, which is basically an R&D project, was then awarded with an innovation award. But not every R&D project has to go public. Sometimes we just build stuff that we can use right here in the office, for example. And this big blue case is actually an air cleaner, which uses UVC radiation to prevent the transmission of coronaviruses. And we have it, I think we have 2 or 3 right here in the office, and we use it to prevent the transmission. All of these projects, they either if they are like commercial or if they're just an R&D project, they have to be secure. That's what we also have a look about it. And about this security stuff, Nils will then show us more about this topic.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Let me share my screen just a second. Okay, I hope everybody can see it. Yeah, welcome to the talk about Android reengineering for beginners. Maybe one thing at first, if you have any questions, please note it down in the chat, preferable with the slide numbers. And also, I would kindly ask you, please listen to the talk instead of trying everything out right away, because that's more important and you understand more than later. Yeah, thinking about the content of today's talk. First of all, why reengineering? Next, I would like to talk a little bit about Android basics. So the Linux background, basically. Also the assembly dialect used for Android, that's actually called Smali, which is actually the Icelandic word for assembly, more or less. Next, I would like to show you some reengineering tools and examples. And last but not least, some countermeasures about it. Well, why reengineering, actually? Well, you can imagine it. There is malware around, and you want to analyze it for security reasons, for virus scanners, for something similar, for research maybe. And for that, we need some tools to understand what's going on there, because we don't have the source code. Another thing actually is porting of apps, adding features and languages. That depends on your country, if that's allowed or not. So that's a thing about the laws here, but that's a general reason why reengineering. Android basics. So thinking about Linux in the background. First of all, I hope you can see my mouse here. We have at the button the hardware. Above that, we have the operating system, so basically Linux and Android, and then we have the frameworks. So thinking about, we want to use this telephone maybe. There's a telephone API, the telephone framework, and above that we have our apps. What's important here is all of our apps are actually running on some sort of virtual machine. On older Android systems, it's called Dalvik. On newer ones, it's the ART virtual machine. And basically the access to the system is limited by this virtual machine, but also by Linux. We will see this on the next slide. So this is, for instance, an example how to access the Linux behind Android. First of all, maybe let's take a look to the right. You can use the device file explorer or it's part of the Android SDK, and can just look at the files of your device. So for instance, here, the package of my demo application, example.mw, and we see here some native code maybe, and we also see here the permissions. So it's a directory, we have read, write access and execute and so on for the user and so on. So that's basically the Linux behind Android. We see it here as well. So we have here the typical rights. We have a user ID, we have a group ID, and that's for every app. So for instance, in this case, I use a simple terminal app, and you don't even have to root your device. You can just access your personal directory, so data, and then the package name more or less, and can look at your own files. In this case of this terminal app, it works right away. So you can look at the shared preferences and files that are stored there, or cache or something like that. And what's also neat is you can have a look at the shared preferences. So that's what you, as a developer, just use and save and store and so on, is actually just an XML file in this directory, and it's not even encrypted by default. Of course, you can do that, but I will talk about that later. Smali is another topic. Let's have a look at a very pretty example. So we have here our typical onCreate function of our Android app. So we have set content view maybe, there's a parameter layout, and maybe a button and a reference to this button in the layout. If we look at the Smali code, you can already notice it's probably not that hard as pure assembly for x86. So for instance, you can see here the onCreate method. You see there's this Android OS bundle. Okay, looks already similar in L. I can already say it's an object, but We'll explain it later. And V is basically void for no return value. Similar thing here for set content view. Again, here's no return value, and we have an I for integer value. Of course, this is actually a reference to the layout. So you can already imagine it's not too complicated to understand Smiley, but we will go into the details soon. First of all, a little bit more about Smiley. Registers. They are actually always 32-bit in size, and it doesn't matter if it's long or double. So even if you have 64-bit, you will actually just use 2 registers, or if you have a value of 8-bit or something like that, you will still use one register with 32 bits of size. What's important here is you have different registers in Smiley code. So for instance, V0, V1, V2, and so on, and P0, P1, P2. So that's more or less the most typical ones. And especially these first ones are mostly used in most functions to store some values, while V2 or P0, there's actually, you could print here an equal sign. Actually, P0 is usually used as this parameter. So if you refer to an object, if I go back here, you have this P0 here. That's usually meant to this activity. So basically, this reference to it, and you have a parameter here, which is basically the value here, the integer value, the reference to the layout. You also have simple data types. I introduced the first one already. So V actually for write, usually used for return functions, or without a return value this way. That for boolean values, or maybe I for integer values, F for float, and so on. And you also saw that L already. L actually is meant for objects. So L, Java language string, is basically a string object. You can also do arrays. So for instance, to do an integer array, here's this I will just use a bracket. So that's an integer array. Also 2-dimensional works this way. Or if I want to do a string array, I can just, again, do this bracket, the L for object, and append more or less the object here. If you look at the functions that are created in this language, it can get quite complicated. So let's first look at a very simple example here. We have, again, some sort of object, L Java string, and this string has some sort of method, and it has 3 values, 3 integer values actually, and that as a return value. But this can also get more complicated. So think about some function that has maybe, I don't know, 5 parameters or something like that. You will have this long string, which looks already quite ugly. So maybe just divide it a little bit. So we have the return value. It's going to be a string here. And if we look here, it's an I, so an integer value, a 2-dimensional integer array, another integer, and again, a language, an L for a Java string object, and actually just an array of objects again. So you can write this, of course, in Java again, just to make it easier for you in this way. Thinking about one fact, I just repeated here the register names so that you see it here right away. What's special is long values and double values again. Those are 64-bit, so we will use 2 registers. This is only important sometimes. So for instance, if you see it here, we have a function, there's an integer value. We basically have J. So what's J again? Let's look in our list. J, it's a long value, 64 bits. So we will need 2 registers, 2 times 32 bits. And that's actually why we have our J object here in 2 parameters, 2 parameter registers this way, P2 and P3, and our Z value is basically in P4 in this case. Maybe one additional information. Sometimes you will see this here. This is basically just for us as a developer to know this registers, how many registers are in this method. actually how many local registers are here, which are non-parameter registers. But that's actually not really useful for development or changing or something like that. That's just good to know. What we will often see later on is the Dalvik Op Codes. So more or less the assembly language, for instance, what you know from real or normal assembly already, move something from one register to the other register, or maybe these typical comments like if something equals the other one. So if this register equals this register, jump to this line, something like that. So you will find all these comments explained in the link above if you face the smiley code later on, so that you can look it up. Well, smiley. First of all, we need a simple target. So I thought about this application. It's a very simple application where you have a button. You have to actually enable this button first. And if you did that, you can just put some text in here. And after you click the button, you will have an encrypted text here. So pretty easy, actually. The issue here, you see it already. We have to enable this button here. So let's get a little bit further. I want to make it easier for you. So this is the usual Java code here, so that you get an insight into the application first. So as an Android developer, as you can see here already, we have our send content view. So basically just the layout. We have the button and connected to the layout. And here's actually the interesting line for it. Button set enabled false. So it's not enabled yet. And yeah, we want to change that. And maybe I just would like to add this as well. So as soon as we click the button, if it is enabled, we will actually call a native library here at the top, or actually here, and get a result back. That's the encrypted hex that are encrypted hex values. Here's also how this native part is implemented. Pretty straightforward. We will just get the string out of Java and basically XOR it with some value. In this case, it's B, and basically returns that value. So pretty straightforward and easy, not too complicated, I guess. So that's just that you know how this application looks like. And now the task. Imagine we have this app, we don't have the source code, and we would like to enable this button. And also we would like to know the secret key that's used here for the encryption. Well, if we change to the attacker view, we can actually just look at our APK file and notice already it's actually just a zip file. So we have here some classes, decks, resources, okay, more resources, libraries, okay, and if we try to look at something of that, that's encoded. Well, that's that's encoded. That's pretty sad. So actually, let me so this way. So what can we do about it? There's actually the so-called Apk Tool. This Apk Tool is one of the options we can use here. And the nice thing here is basically extracts all the resources, the XML files, also these classes, stacks, and so on for us, and also Smiley files. So you know Smiley already a little bit. Let's jump into the details here. The Smiley files are actually stored here in these directories of these classes, stacks files, basically, more or less. So in my case, I know already it's stored in the classes 2 dex file. In the directory com, example, and MV for MaibornWolff. So it's our example application. What you also notice here are the libraries. So the native libraries are available for different platforms. So for instance, for the emulator, or maybe for your phone, or maybe even for your computer, for your x86 computer. You have the resource files and so on. And as I said earlier, you have the Smiley files. And the very interesting one here is actually our main activity. So let's just have a look at that. So Smiley classes. com example, and here's a Smiley file, and I guess I opened it earlier already in Visual Code. Yeah. So it looks pretty much like this. The first thing you will notice already, we have names here. Well, I thought it's easier for you, so I use the debug version. But even if you don't, or if you would not use the debug version, you still would have some sort of name. Maybe not saved instance state or something like that, but maybe A or something like that. So it's a little bit harder to understand it, but you still have all these cool functions like onCreate, set content view, and find view by ID, and so on. That's usually not obfuscated. And so it's straightforward to understand it, what's in this P1 value or what's in V0 or something like that, even you don't have a name for it. So thinking about our goal of changing the value of the button, so we can just scroll through our code here. There's this button somewhere here, and here's actually our interesting line. We have this button here, the object, we have the function set enabled. There is our type, it's a Boolean value, and it has no return value. So that's our function we know from the Java code already. And let's look here. This is basically this. And one would be our first parameter. That's this value here, the Boolean value. And what's in there? Well, 0. Maybe you know from the past, true is actually just 1 or 0. So in this case, it's set to false, so 0. The only change we would be required to do so is you change this to 1. And now we can actually just save it, and yeah, that's already it. So that was pretty easy to enable this button. Let me go back to the slide. So the only thing that's left to do is basically to use the Apk tool now and use the parameter b for building it again. So we will, as a parameter, it will be this directory will be used at the top, so our app debug directory, and in the Apk tool will basically take all files in here. That's also nice if we want to change some images or add some languages or something like that. Let's have a quick look in here. So thinking about the drawables and so on, you have all the source codes in here, all the files, so you can basically just change it if you want to add something and recompile it. So that's actually pretty neat about the Apk tool. The only thing that's left here is basically what you see here already. You have to sign the app again. So you can use your self-created key file, more or less, key store, and basically just sign it with that. And as soon as you did that, you are able to install it on your phone again. So that was not that hard, I guess. Nevertheless, if you say now already, that looks complicated, is there an easier way? Yes, there's actually a tool called dex2jar, and there's actually for Java, if you're familiar with Java, jar files are linked to Java development. You can use any Java decompiler. So for instance, this JDGUI. Let's take a look at it. So again, we will look at our APK file. There are these classes decks, and yeah, well, since I developed the app, I know right away I have to use this classes 2.dex file, and I can just extract it from the zip file and can basically hand it over as a parameter to my dex2jar tool. Since it was existing here already, I had to use the force parameter to override it, and the output will be a classes classes 2 minus dex2jar.jar file. And like I said, you can use this jar file and just basically put it into any Java decompiler. So I used here the Java decompiler, and I hope I can zoom in here. Yeah, it works. So if you remember the app, well, it does not look exactly like the source code before, but it's pretty easy to understand everything now. So we have the native library here, we have our encrypting function, there's a parameter string, set content view has, okay, some strange number, but that's actually not too hard. So if you want to look up this number, you know it from Android development. Sometimes there's this R file generated. And you can look up the number in this R file, what it is. And in this case, it will be, of course, the layout for the main activity. And also here's a button, set enabled false, the function for the button. As soon as it clicks, we have a string builder here. So basically, our input string will get printed, and the encrypted version will get printed after calling the encrypted function here at the top. So we can easily understand it. The issue with this code, sometimes, not always, that it might have errors. So we cannot compile it directly. And what you will notice here as well, while we have the source code here, the resources are still missing. So we basically are limited here to understanding what's going on here, but we cannot recompile it right away. So of course, you can place this code in Android Studio now and collect all these resources, for instance, by using the Apk Tool or something like that. But I guess using the Apk Tool is just more easier, and basically just using this option to understand the source code maybe. There's actually one issue remaining, the native code. Thinking about native code, there are tools available as well. So for instance, what I would like to see is something like a decompiler that gets my C source code back. Of course, there are lots of disassemblers and so on, so that I get assembly code, but I prefer actually C code here. It's just easier to read. And what you will notice about these tools, there are different tools available. So for instance, this retargeted decompiler, there's IDR Pro, for instance. There's even Gyra by the NSA. So there are lots of tools available to decompile native code. So, and if you look at this example here, that's one of my former examples out of my dissertation. You basically see that the resulting or decompiled code of the native library looks similar. It's not exactly the same, but you can still understand something. So thinking about encryption values or something like that, you still have that here. Even it, makes no real sense here, G15, wherever that is defined. But still, it might be used to just understand the code a little better, and at least you have the names here as well of these functions. And there are actually further methods to continue here, especially thinking about encryption. You can maybe just replace a function or something like that. Thinking about our demo application again. If you put it into this tool, it's using Python more or less, and just hand over the native library as a parameter, you will get the C source code, or let's say kind of C source code. What you will notice here, thinking about my demo code at the beginning, that fits on one line, on one slide. This one is really, really huge. So you have lots of functions generated here. Let me actually say lots of nonsense. So the decompiler is just trying to understand our natively. Nevertheless, what we will notice here already is thinking about the names, our encrypt function. That's in here. So we can just scroll down and look for it. And after a while, we actually find it. Well, if you remember it, there was some sort of for loop. There was some sort of printing out the value. First the input value and then actually the output value. Well, that's not really, my app, the value C. Okay, there's something missing here. So the decompiler was not really able to understand everything. But if we think again about the encryption and the XOR encryption, we actually get the hint here that we need. So that we have to use here B or 66 as our encryption or decryption key. Well, what can you do against it? First of all, I mentioned it at the beginning already, you can use encryption. So thinking about the shared preferences, just encrypt it with Android. Sure, there are methods against it again. So it's actually just another layer to make it more secure. But again, it's another layer to add more security to your application. Same applies to obfuscation. So you can basically obfuscate these names and turn it into something like a.a called something and has some strange values and so on. Of course, with lots of effort, an attacker can understand that as well. So it's more or less time consuming, but it will not protect it from being re-engineered at all. Thinking about how these obfuscation tools actually work, there's a pretty cool talk by Google. If I would like to point you out to this talk here on YouTube. In somehow how it actually works is the tool is looking at your application and is analyzing it, what your application is using. So, for instance, in this case, there is a class L1, a class L2, and this one is using a class A maybe, and class B and C is not used, so we can get rid of it. At least the tool thinks that. The issues is here maybe these classes B and C are used in a dynamic way. So thinking about reflections or something like that, that's a big issue for these tools. And that's actually why we have with ProGuard and so on a so-called config file. And we basically have to say ProGuard, hey, please keep class B and C because I need it. So that's actually the only reason here for these config files. There are various tools available. So like I mentioned already, ProGuard by GuardSquare. We have -O or the new one R8 by Google. And DexGuard by GuardSquare as well. Well, what we will notice here, these two tools actually cost money, and I like to call them real obfuscators. Well, why? Think about encryption. You have some string parameter here, and while ProGuard will actually just maybe use the same parameter or maybe just rename it a little bit and put in the value somewhere here in clear text, DexGuard will add some functions and so on to encrypt it. So you have some AES encryption or something like that to make it even more harder. And there is a long list of functions what these tools are doing. Also, what's nice about this one, if you prefer some UI, you can use -O, for instance. One side note about this deobfuscation as well, there are actually tools, even AI based, to get rid of this obfuscation and just get the usual code back again. Just that you are aware of it. So please test your obfuscation and maybe you have to add some functions or use a different tool or something like that. So that you don't have the issue here of deobfuscating it or easily deobfuscating it. Also, what you noticed already, thinking about the native code, you can actually place code in the C source code. I mean, if it's just using a simple function like XOR with some value, well, then as you saw, it's not the best way to protect it that way. But if you think about some more complex code, like an AES encryption or something like that, it will get pretty hard for the decompiler to return the C code to you. Of course, you can dig into the assembly code, but that's even harder to understand. And fortunately, there are methods to make it even harder. So thinking about the function names we saw, there are actually flags to be used with the compiler to just hide these ones, or using obfuscation tools again. So we can actually, thinking about the code, you saw it already, it's I don't know, 5 pages long or something like that. You can even increase that a lot and add lots of stuff to it to make it even more complicated and use more registers and so on. So you can hide a lot of code in native code, actually. Well, there could also be a requirement for even more security. for whatever reasons you want to keep your secrets away. So thinking about Android and the key store, for instance, that's actually stored in a so-called secure element. Secure element is actually available on any phone. So thinking about an NFC device, there's a secure element in there. Or your SIM cards. Every SIM card is a secure element, basically providing you secret access keys for the network. Also, newer phones have a so-called trusted execution environment. Imagine you have your hardware here, you have your Android OS here, you have some apps here that are all insecure, and on this side are the trusted applications. So these ones are more or less safe. More or less, of course, there could be an exploit or something like that in these interfaces between that app and that app, but that's really rare. At the beginning, it happened more frequently, but nowadays it's really rare. But even if you want to increase security more, you can use an external server and, for instance, a separated hardware security module, for instance, for key generation or something like that. Yeah, thinking about the literature and some links, I can recommend you my dissertation if you're interested in that. It was actually about copy protection, so decompiling and recompiling and so on. Another guide I can recommend is a mobile security testing guide. So just if you look into this very large, I guess it's 500 pages long guide and look for the tools, you will find lots of information there and explanations and so on. So that's a really highly recommended guide by me as well. Yeah, all these tools that I used and showed you, here are the links as well. So thanks for your attention. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat so that I can reply to you.
So thanks, Nils, for the excellent presentation. It has been really, really interesting. And I forgot to mention that we have a master on cybersecurity.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that the teaching period is during after lunch, is after afternoon. So for them, because most of them they are working, for them it was impossible to follow in live this presentation. But I was talking with the director of the master, and they are going to put your presentation in one of the lectures. And I think they are going to really enjoy, because you have touched really hot topics, and I think they are going to use many of the tools that you have shown. It was really not to play with that.
Feel free to send me an email if you have any questions then. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Perfect. And of course, you are really welcome to come to Valencia when the situation is better, to give a live presentation with our students, because this is really interesting, but it's not the same. We are losing a lot of extra things doing this kind of presentation online. It's a pity. Okay, so I don't know if there are questions, because our students are a bit shy. We have about 50 people following online, so there were a lot, but no questions. I think Paula wanted to say something before the...
Yes, thank you. Well, thank you very much to all of you who made it this far. I hope you all could learn something. I definitely did. As Nils said, just feel free to contact us, whatever you might want, some open questions, or if you just simply want to know more about us and what we do, feel free to reach us directly on LinkedIn if you wish. And now it says back to Spanish. Muchas gracias a todos. Contactadnos en LinkedIn para lo que queráis, si tenéis algún tipo de preguntas, si queréis saber más sobre lo que hacemos. Estoy segura de que vais a oír más de nosotros. Estaremos encantados de hacer workshops o participar en cualquier tipo de cooperaciones. Y yo creo que ya nos vemos por Valencia.
Muy bien. Bueno, quería comentar también que dentro de los puestos que ofrecéis, hemos publicado en nuestras redes sociales y en el blog de empresas una serie de puestos que en este caso son más seniors, porque digamos que es para la primera fase de la apertura de la oficina. Y nada, quiero invitaros a que le peguéis un vistazo y si podéis aplicar, os invito a aplicar y si conocéis a alguien que lo pueda estar interesado, pues por lo mismo y nada. Gracias de nuevo a Nils y al resto de ingenieros y especialmente a Paula por facilitarnos digamos, esta charla y espero que sea la primera de muchas actividades que vamos a hacer de manera conjunta.
Espero.
Muy bien.
Muchísimas gracias a vosotros.
Vale. Adiós.
Adiós.
Adiós.